this video is about Norwegian Cruise Line's studio cabins. If you look around YouTube, you're going to find lots of videos on a cabin tour for the studio cabins. However, I'm going to talk about the total experience of being in that section. And at the end of this video, we will do our own cabin tour. That's coming up next. Hi, I'm John. Today I'm going to talk about Norwegian Cruise Lines and their solo cabins. Well, first of all, not all Norwegian cruise ships are equipped with solo cabins. Specifically, solo cabins are designed for one person, and they don't allow two people to share a solo cabin, or at least you can't book it that way. In any event, not every Norwegian cruise ship is equipped with solo cabins. The list is growing all the time. I'm going to talk about my experience on three different sister ships, if you will, Norwegian Epic, Breakaway, and Getaway. And I'm booked this April to go on the fourth sister ship, the newest one, Escape. I understand that there are other Norwegian cruise ships with solo cabins on it, but I don't know which ones they are. You could certainly check with their website or one of their agents. Solo cabins are not exclusive to Norwegian. I understand that Royal Caribbean has a few, even some balconies, and their solo cabins are available on some of the other European cruise ships that I have heard about, although I have not experienced that. So I'm going to talk about what it's like to be in a solo cabin, and I'm going to compare it to my experiences that when I was in a balcony cabin or a inside cabin, and kind of show you the differences. So allow me to call the Escape and Breakaway, Getaway, and Epic the four sisters, because they are so similar, and that's what my point of reference is. So each of those ships are fairly large, I guess kind of in second place behind Oasis of the Sea and its sister ship, but large ships. So with the large ships comes not that much longer than a traditional cruise ship, but certainly wider. Because it's wider, they physically have the space on the four sister ships for cabins that are on the inside. And I mean middle. They're the middle point between the bow and the stern, and starboard and port. So to be upfront, here's a big issue. Some people find cruise ships cabins to be kind of small. I've gotten used to it because I've been on about 18 or 19 cruises. So some people have an issue with no window, and so that's an important thing to note. If you're kind of claustrophobic that way, maybe these cabins are not for you. So again, these cabins are in the middle of the ship, and for some reason they have separate key access to get into the section where all the solo cabins are. And the reason for that, I don't know, but you have to use your room key to get into that section. So that's something a little bit different. When you actually get into the room, the first thing to note is that they put in a fake window. Excuse the word fake. Certainly Norwegian won't call it that in their video, but it's a window, a big round window with little blinds on it that open up or lead out into the hallway. It's not really intended to give you anything to look at through the window, but more or less the perception that you have a window in your room And believe it or not, I did find that kind of a nice feature. So the overall size of a studio cabin is smaller than a balcony cabin or smaller than even an inside cabin. However, they do have the same bed or beds in there. So in a traditional cabin, you would have two single beds, and if you want them pushed together for a queen, you can do that too. That is the same arrangement in the studio cabins. Now, the situation is that bed is pushed up against one wall, and the space between the other side of the bed and the cupboards and so on is only about 8 or 10 inches, enough to walk up and down, but fairly tight. I thought it unusual that they put the two single beds in there, but I would have thought that they would put in some sort of oversized single bed or whatever, but that's how they chose to do it. They could have had a little more room, I guess. Maybe they expect that you'll have a visitor, I'm not sure. The storage in the studio cabin is more than adequate. I've stayed as a solo traveler in a inside room. I found there to be just as much storage because of all the little cubby holes and so on they have. So what is unique is the shower. The shower is unusually small, even by cruise ship standards. One of the other solo travelers and I were talking about what the shower is like. He was a huge guy, ex-military guy, and so on. And I said, what happens when you drop the soap? He said, well, I got to leave the shower, go out in the hall and come back in. So, or not in the hall, but outside of the shower. So the neat thing is it's kind of a module thing with a sliding door, and it's not so dark in there because it has frosted glass on the outside. So the rest of the room certainly adequate in size, but quite small. So the other uniqueness of the studio cabin arrangement is they have a studio lounge. There seems to be about 50 studio cabins on the ships that I was on, spread out over 3 different floors, and the studio lounge is in the middle of all of that with a spiral staircase in it, believe it or not. You could help yourself to cookies and tea and that sort of thing there. There was even a bar that they opened on a few occasions when we had a group gathering there. So for the most part, some people used it as a spot to go and chat with a friend or whatever, but it is exclusively for the studio cabins, and you need key access to get into that area anyways, so that was the arrangement there. So next I'm going to talk about the experience of being a solo traveler on this ship. First of all, let me say I've been on these ships as a solo traveler in the studio lounge about 8 or 9 times, I'm not sure about that, and on several different ships. So they are distinct in that they would hold singles gatherings every day. Now that's not unique. Royal Caribbean and Carnival would have social gatherings or for singles. However, every time I went, seldom was there any more than just one person there. I did meet a few people at singles gatherings or solo travelers gatherings on ships that weren't Norwegian, but it pales by comparison big time. As a matter of fact, the last time I cruised was on Royal Caribbean's Oasis of the Sea, one of the 2 sister ships that is the largest in the world. I went to that solo travelers gathering. There was one other person there, and so that was kind of a disappointing part about Royal Caribbean, that Norwegian does far better, and let me explain. So the standard arrangement for Norwegian solo travelers is every day at 5 o'clock we would have a gathering. We were appointed a facilitator, one of the ship's staff from the entertainment staff, I guess, or hospitality staff, but they would act as a facilitator at every one of our gatherings, and would take names and so on for those people who wanted to go off to a group dinner that night, or on to get together for one of the shows on a different night or whatever. So the arrangement was sometimes they were in the solo lounge, but sometimes they were on a different part of the ship. When I first started traveling as a solo traveler, if you weren't in the solo lounge or in a solo cabin, you weren't allowed to join the solo travelers functions. They have since changed that, and now some single people that are staying in balcony cabins or inside cabins with another friend, they're allowed to attend the solo functions, which is kind of nice. So my experience has been on different cruises we had different amount of people that would join in the solo gatherings. Some of the things I attended were as few as 3 or 4 people, or as large as one group dinner was 30 people. So it depends on the mixture of people that are there, and if they wish to attend, that sort of thing. So from that standpoint, Norwegian is my hands down favorite in the category of being able to set you up with a bunch of people to enjoy their company while you're on the ship. So one other thing I should add, my experience was that not everybody that was in a solo cabin was a solo traveler. As a matter of fact, a high percentage of them were actually traveling with another group or a family or whatever, but chose to have their own cabin. For example, one woman was on a trip with her daughter and the husband and the 2 kids, but she had no intention of sharing the same cabin with the other 4, so she simply took a solo cabin, and that worked out perfectly. Of course, this is my bias based on the fact that I'm a solo traveler, and 95% or probably even higher of the passengers on those 4 sister ships are in fact not solo travelers. Lots of people that, so most of them, they weren't even aware of our group, and that's good. But for someone who is a solo traveler, it's really a great option. Once again, I'd have to emphasize the thing that makes it really great is they have a facilitator, and that creates a circumstance where you can spend time with other people and pick and choose the times you want to do that and the people you want to do it with. There's no obligation to attend any of the functions, but boy, it sure is a nice option, and I have every intention of doing it again. That's all for now. Thanks, everybody.